for another episode. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Purpose Driven Chance. I'm your host, William Grayson, with my sidekick, Ace Boone Coon, William Harris. How you doing, Will?
Doing great.
All right, today we got a special guest with us, known as Dante, comedian extraordinaire, last comic standing, Dante. How you doing, Dante?
I'm good, man. How are you guys doing?
Fine. Thanks
Doing
for
great.
coming on. We're doing great. Thank you, Dante, for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you don't understand. So, Dante, what inspired you to pursue a career in comedy? Let's
You
start
know
off with
what?
that.
It's the truth is it's a person and an experience. So the person that probably influenced me the most growing up was Richard Pryor. I was always
Are you for real?
yeah, I was always sneaking to go listen to his albums. You know, him and Bill Cosby. What happened there, man? Sometimes you can't trust people with sweaters. You just learn that, you know. But anyway, so no, I was a big fan of his, and then I lived on a Navy base, and this was the event that inspired me. It was my dad said there's an improv group coming, and
Uh-huh.
I didn't know what that was, so I went and watched them, and it felt like stand-up comedy, and I saw them do it in my little town on a base, and I went, well, if they can do it, I can start my stand-up career now. And I started when I was 7. And I played at my
What?
school, and I played in my backyard, and then my career was over until we moved to San Diego. But yeah, that was my inspiration, was watching Richard Pryor, and then there was a Showtime special in the 70s that had an unknown comedian named Jim Carrey, and he could do all these impressions with his face, you know,
Right.
and so I learned how to do, like, I can do Robert De Niro without saying a word. You ready? Here we
Right.
go. There you go. That's it. That's all you do. And if anyone was listening, I did Robert De Niro with my face. But so he inspired me as a child. All of those events did, and those people. But yeah, I mean, since I was a kid, I wanted to be a comedian. I always knew I was going to be a comedian.
Dang. How do you find purpose and fulfillment through making people laugh?
Gosh, I would have to say my favorite thing that I do personally is perform for the troops. Now, yes, there are lots of people who come up to me after shows and they say, I wanted to thank you. You know, I was depressed, or my mom just died, or this, and now you took my mind off of it for these hours, or whatever. But there is nothing better than performing for the troops. I've done it since I was 15 years old. I still do it now. It's taken me all over the world. It doesn't pay very well, but it's worth every second that you're with them. It's worth being on the bases. I don't know how to. It's not just because they're over there serving our country. They're also the next generation, you know?
Yeah.
They're the young people out there that are going to be, you know, the ones running this place. And it's always so nice and refreshing to see them out there. And there's also the sad side where, you know, like, especially when I've done this for 37 years, there's been wartime, you know,
Right.
I'll go out to some desert and there's, you know, 10,000 troops and I'm performing on the back of a truck to all of them. And I know that they're taking off for deployment the next day. It's depressing also, but it's also the most rewarding thing I think I've ever done in my career is performing for the United States troops. It almost makes me want to cry now.
Yes. Will.
Dante, when you
Yes,
think
sir.
about comedy, you go back to George Carlin, Rodney Dangerfield, to today's comedians. How much do you think comedy has changed in the last 20 years?
That's a really good question, Will. Man, it is. You know why? Because I think if I were to say a lot, I'd be lying to you. I think comedy hasn't changed that much since I was a kid even. I mean, the real change came when people were groundbreaking like Pryor and Lenny Bruce, when they were, and Carlin, like you said, when they were saying things on television that they weren't allowed to say. What's
Right.
been groundbreaking since then? Not much, you know, like, oh, Bert Kreischer took his shirt off when he does his show, or, you know, this person doesn't wear shoes. Well, none of that's groundbreaking. So I wouldn't say that the business has changed. I'd say that grumpy comedians might say the business has changed, sort of like in in the Breakfast Club, you know how the principal's like, these kids are the worst. They've changed. And the
Right.
janitor's like, no, you just got old. You're, like, they didn't change. You changed. It's the same game. The only difference was that, people are a bit more sensitive. It's the only thing I'll say. And that did kind of mess me up mentally for about a year because COVID, I think, messed up the whole world. It was like
Yeah.
a skip in the record or something where we all went, what? Where are we now? But and comics had to perform on Zoom and still kind of do. And when we all came back, the woke movement had happened. And even though I'm very woke and consider myself woke, you still don't know if you're going to offend someone. And comedy shouldn't be that scary. And then the whole Will Smith, Chris Rock thing happened. And that made comedy even more uncertain because the next day you heard of like 10 comedians being attacked on stage by people who didn't like what they were saying. And that got like crazy for months.
Right.
And so I went to Alaska and I was like, you know what? I've never been to Alaska. I may never come back. I'm going to do the shows I want to do, whether I think the audience can handle it or not. And I did these shows where you could tell some people were conservative, some were liberal, blah, blah, blah. I didn't walk a person. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to try playing some clean circuit. So I went out on this clean circuit where Jim Gaffigan was doing theater. So I played one of the theaters, did completely clean, but a unwoke clean show. The crowd went crazy. So it's like, I think people are they got fed up with how things were and they just want things to be normal again. No one should be making fun of people to where it hurts them or saying anything with malice, or if you want to tell racial jokes, they shouldn't hurt anyone, including especially the race you're talking about. But if you do all those things right, then you're doing it right. You know what I mean? Like, people can't be mad if you're saying what you say and it doesn't hurt anyone for real,
You're telling the truth.
Yeah. I mean,
Dante,
honestly, yes, sir.
talk to me about the camaraderie between all you comedians. Is there one?
Yes, for sure. It's like, I always compare it to police, except probably way better because, like, police, I still feel like you can't call someone out. You know what I mean? In the police department, you can't be like, hey, man, you're a crooked cop. We should all turn you in. Whereas comics will turn on you if you're bad. It's not like everyone got mad at Cat for calling out people. Some people were kind of glad someone of his stature did it. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean they agreed with everything he said or he was right about everything, but sometimes it is nice when someone with a voice calls people out. Man, I got so distracted. What was the question again?
the camaraderie.
Camaraderie, yeah. So here's what I was going to say. Even if we do infight a little, like, the stuff that's, when you see each other, like, I haven't seen comics in forever, like, because once you become a headliner, that's the guy who, is the last person on the show. There aren't two headliners. So when would I ever see my friends again? And it's like, I'm out on the road. Like this week, I go to Reno Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to perform at the Laugh Factory there. And it's like, when I get back on Monday, I have shows the next thing starting on Wednesday. Am I really going to go to the Comedy Store and hang out? Probably not. But what I was going to say is, if I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years, let's say D.L. Hughley, and we were in the airport, I promised we'd go out to lunch together. We'd hang out. If I was walking through the airport and I saw a comedy backpack, I would walk up and be like, oh, are you in comedy? And if they said yes, I bet we'd be eating together. When comics, there's a real camaraderie because we end up living together. Or at least it's like comedy camp on the road. There's like 3 people living in a condo for like a week. And by the end of the week, you've eaten together, you've talked, you've heard people on the phone with their wives, all this stuff. It's crazy.
Comedy is basically a tough industry. What keeps you motivated during the hard times?
I'll tell you exactly what does. Never having to work under fluorescent lights. That's it. I'm telling you, man. My mom, I can show you where I am. I live in Hollywood, okay? I'm going to show you around the neighborhood. So I'm not in front of my house, so I don't care. No one's going to see my address.
Yeah, I got
in my neighborhood, okay? In Hollywood. And my mom's, and it's a nice neighborhood. I love where I live. I've got, ponds in my yards and all this stuff. I love it. And my mom, before she passed away, and not that she wasn't very proud of me, she was, but she said something that was a bit offensive. She said, your cousin stayed with the military, and he worked with them for 30-something years. And now he owns a house on the beach in Ventura. Aren't you jealous? And I said, no, Mom. No, because I didn't have to spend 30 years under fluorescent lights being yelled at by someone. Instead, I got to tell jokes and be flown around the world multiple times for 37 years. And that's the truth. It is the freedom of not having someone scream at you. I think that's why comics seem to live longer.
Yeah.
You know, we laugh more, and we don't have a real boss that's yelling at us. We're the boss yelling at us, and the anxiety we get may be crippling, but at least we gave it to ourselves, not someone else.
That's a good answer. I really appreciate that. Now, how has comedy evolved since you've been doing it?
Wow, that's a great question, man. In every way, because we all test limits. You know, I remember just even in my lifetime, someone saying, "Oh, did you know you were the first white comic on BET?" What? In my lifetime, I was the first one? Oh, that's crazy. Okay.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. So it's not like I brought that up for that reason. I brought it up because you'd think that by the 90s, there would have been a white comic on BET at some point, but there wasn't. I mean, I guess they really didn't have much comedy on BET back then, but I guess I'm just saying, like, there's a lot that has changed. I mean, even being able to say things, not say things. Comedy clubs, when I started, were full of smoke. I don't know if I perform anywhere where you can smoke anymore. And that even recently went away, because at least in casinos, even like 5 years ago, people were still smoking. So it's kind of, a lot has changed. So much has changed. I mean, I remember telling a joke about, do you know, like those commercials where they'll show kids in a foreign country and they need food and send them money per day? And I used to have this joke about it that would kill, and it would kill in every audience. I remember I opened for Mark Curry one night, long time ago, and he goes, "Oh man, I love that bit, blah, blah, blah." Cut to 10 years later, people hated the bit. I would get like booing and stuff. So I dropped it for 10 years. 10 years later, I brought it back. "Oh, we love it. We love this one." So it's like, there's just waves you go through where it's like people change and then they come back. I think things are starting to even out again finally now, for sure, because things got wacko between politics in America and COVID. We all went nuts.
That's when everything starts going. You know, this is too sensitive to talk about. We don't want to talk about that, and then you have to rewrite everything.
Right. Yeah, and then imagine, like, you also we're like athletes. You think that we're just smart and we remember our acts and that, but you have to remember that with COVID, us not performing for almost 3 years, it was really hard coming back out of it. Every comic felt like they had quit comedy for 2.5 years. So we lost a lot of comics that were just like too afraid to come back. But that was okay, because we lost over 500 comedy clubs. Those were comedy clubs, not just venues. Like, I'm sure we lost even more venues, but during COVID, we lost over 500. There was a group called the Looney Bins throughout the country that I used to play all of them. Gone. All of them are gone.
Dang.
Mm-hmm.
Will.
Dante, what is your long-term vision for you regarding comedy?
You know what? I would love to celebrate my 100th birthday on a comedy stage somewhere. I don't care how famous I am. I've never worried about that. I like paying my bills by telling jokes and traveling the world. I really do. That's what makes me happiest. And I do like fame only because it's what pays bills more. But right. I'm glad I've never been like, look, I've been famous enough to where people will stop me in the airports or say hello at lunch. But then I know once they're gone, it's probably not happening for the rest of the day until maybe tomorrow one time. You know what I mean? Like, but I can't imagine if I said no to someone or like, yeah, sure, I'll sign this. And I go take a bite and now there's 10 people. Oh, sure, okay. And now there's a line. You know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine if that was my life. But I'm so grateful for everything that I've been given. I mean, what a wonderful job to be able to just tell jokes to people and then invite you into their world, you know?
Yeah.
And that's gotten me out of a lot of stuff too. I remember a friend of mine who was a comedian. He went to jail for the weekend because He got a ticket, and I guess he had warrants because he hadn't paid some tickets, so he had to stay in
Right.
jail the whole weekend. He said the only thing that got him out of trouble was jokes. He said the minute someone would come up, he'd tell them a joke, and all of a sudden that tough guy would call over his friends and make him tell more jokes. He said he was the most protected person in prison or jail that weekend.
Dante, who is Dante, the husband, the father, and the friend?
Oh, wow. He's even better than the comedian. I strive to be a good person, man. I really do. I hope, I mean this, I really hope I'm the best husband and father ever. And I try daily. I mean, I wake my wife up with, it's a beautiful day and you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. That's what I tell her every day. There's
Mhm.
never a day she doesn't have flowers in the house. We've been together 16 years. It's not like this is a new relationship. You know, my daughter, my biggest regret in life is that she didn't tell me in time about some daddy-daughter dance. Now, look, I went to all but one, but I still missed one because, you know, she's 8. She didn't think to tell her dad, and I already had a gig, and being check to check, you know, I had to go take it. And that was heartbreaking for me, but if I can be the best dad and friend and all those things to people, I think I'm cool with that. I go to therapy because my whole family died. Just it happens when you start getting
Right.
older, and so it's
Right.
depressing. And so I went to a therapist, and she goes, "Wow, you know, your activism with you filming the police and stuff during BLM and blah blah blah. Where do you think all this comes from?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "I just believe in right and wrong." She goes, "What makes you believe in right and wrong?" I said, "I don't know. My childhood, probably." She was like, "Who taught you that?" And I said, "Well, my parents went out a lot. So I'd watch Happy Days and Good Times and What's Happening. And, you know, every episode was about being good. It was about don't do this, don't do that, be good, be a good person." And I
Right.
said, she goes, "So television raised you?" And I said, "I guess so." And she goes, "Well, how has that affected your life?" And I said, "Oh my God." I said, "Well, I'm also a manager." And I said, and a booking agent. I represent Jimmy Walker from Good Times. I was best friends with Rerun from What's Happening. I represent Haywood Nelson from What's Happening. She goes, "Oh, I see you found your parents." And I was like, wow, that's why I'm paying you all this money.
Wow.
Wow. I was like, holy cow, found
Yeah,
my,
that
found
that
these
that.
people.
Yep. Yep. So let me ask you this: has ever been a joke or a routine that you didn't go over that you hope went well?
You know what? Man, I don't know. There were a couple that I always thought were clever that people just never got. You know, like I said, one time I said, you know, because there's a lot of words that they say in England that you don't know. And I had a whole bit about it. Over there,
Uh-huh.
they say knock up means wake up, whereas here it means you got someone pregnant, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Basically, the joke was I didn't think to bring an English to English dictionary when I went to England. And it's like, man, I thought that was so clever. No one ever got it. I mean, some people got it and would laugh, but I always thought it'd be a bigger joke.
It
And
just
then
went
things
south.
and then things I'll just throw away on stage will get this giant laugh. I'm like, man, I better write that down. Like about a week ago on stage, some comic said he took Spirit, and the first thing I said when I got up there was like, man, I'll never fly Spirit. And I was just being honest. I was like,
Yeah.
I've never, you know, when you watch a movie and someone's having a heart attack and they're like, oh man, is there a doctor on the plane? I was like, there will never be a doctor on a Spirit flight, not one time.
Oh,
Never,
oh.
never. You can't even get Wi-Fi to check out how to save this dude's life on a Spirit flight.
All right. So, with the rise of the digital media, how did you adapt to the material on different platforms?
Cool. And in what way? What?
So, like like you said during COVID, you said a lot of comedians went down. They didn't even do like we're doing right now, StreamYard
Right.
or Facebook Live. They just said hell with it. How did you adapt to it?
Honestly, I didn't adapt very well. My wife and I still ran comedy shows on Zoom because each year, for 20 years, we've been running something called the U.S. Comedy Contest. And lots of good people have won in the past. People like Tony Baker, Anthony Jeselnik. So it's like a big contest that people look forward to every year. So we had to run that, and I would tell a couple of jokes, but that's honestly all I did during COVID. During COVID, I mean, I was really involved as an activist in filming the police and my yards, you know, like I turned them into a turtle rescue and put in ponds. And I was just like, I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to start writing a book. I did all the things that I was like preparing for us to come out of COVID and trying to figure out what I needed to do, because we all say, if I only had a year to myself, I'd get this done. And so I was trying to do all those things too. So, you know what, man, I honestly wasn't a part of it. I don't even think, it was so depressing back then. I didn't even think I was like happy enough to even want to be around, you know, like it was a weird time because, you know, you also had everyone yelling at everyone online, and every day you woke up, is it Civil War today? Are we World War III yet? I was like,
people fighting over toilet paper.
Right. People fighting over toilet paper, sanitizer, people taking a knee. Like, people just lost their mind. People lost their mind.
Yeah, they did.
Dante, you've been all over the world, many different venues, different arenas.
Yes.
Where would you consider, for you, what place would you consider comedy heaven where you love to perform? You don't care how many times you go there.
You guys are really good at questions, by the way. You don't get these questions normally from other people.
Well, are you serious?
I'm serious. I'm serious. They'll just say, what's your, you know, tell us a good comedy story. Okay, where's this? Blah, blah, blah. Have you ever done that? Do you know so-and-so? These are like, oh, wow, what's a good place? Only comics ask each other these kind of questions. Because that is what you ask each other. Where's your favorite place? Because I want to go there. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be honest with you. San Diego, where I ended up moving to when I was like 12, and then I started comedy there at 15, is probably one of the best audiences in the world, and so are Texas audiences. And now I really love Alaska too. I couldn't believe it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was like, these guys live up there because, man, they must have killed somebody. You know, like, why else are you living up there? Everybody was great, man. People who you would even think would be like uptight or conservative weren't. They were just all normal, nice people. Like, that's the real thing I'm starting to notice too, is that just even in the past month, I think people realize, oh my God, COVID is over. We are hanging out with friends. I don't care if they're Republican or he's Democrat or if this person got the shot or didn't, or I think people are just going, I just want to be happy around my family and friends again. I think everyone just wants it all over because there's still too much residual hanging onto us, I think.
Dante, you got comedians, you know, like David Chappelle, Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock, all those guys. Have you ever had an experience of hanging out with any of those comedians, including Kevin Hart? Have you?
Everybody. Everyone. I've been the luckiest man alive. So I'm writing a book right now, and you wouldn't believe the things that are in this book. But yeah, I've known everybody since forever. I remember, I went to college with a guy who wanted to do comedy, and so I got him into the Comedy Store. His name was Eric Bishop, and he started going up there and doing great. And then at the end of year one, he was supposed to stay in our acting school in San Diego. He left San Diego, came up to LA, changed his name to Jamie Foxx, and now he has an Academy Award.
Wow.
Wow.
But yeah, man, like everybody, I could tell you how Chris Tucker, I was there the night he got famous. I saw it happen.
You did?
I've known most of these guys before they were famous. I remember Cedric the Entertainer, when he first went on TV, it was like BET's Comic View season 3 or 4, and to him, I was already some giant celebrity. He's like, it's my first time on TV. I'm so nervous.
What about Dante? What about the late great Bernie Mac?
Yeah, man, come on. There's so many. If you start talking about all the ones that are gone, you're gonna make me cry because there's so many great ones. And then the thing that my wife says she's kind of glad that I do it, but she goes, you might have to empty out your phone at some point. My phone is full of dead people, sadly. Like,
hey, that's bad. That's sad.
It's bad, but at the same time, I need the numbers sometime. Like the other night, I needed to talk to Richard Pryor's ex-wife about some rights to his stuff, so I called Richard Pryor's old number, and she answered. So it's
wow.
Dang, get rid of them.
I can see that. How do you handle the competition in the comedy world? Because everybody, I'm better than him. Look, you start laughing. How do y'all handle the competition?
You know what? I don't feel like I have competition. Who's going to be like me? You know what I mean? I
There
feel
you
like
go.
most comics, there is no competition. You know what I mean? Because for real, is Dave Chappelle Chris Rock's competition? No, because they both can't perform at every venue in the world every night. You know, it's true. You have
Right.
your venue, I have mine. There's enough to go around. But the truth is you used to be able to beat someone in competition, and that meant you were better. But it just meant you were better than them that night. But at least it was a gauge. Today, people are judged on, they have 1 million followers. And this isn't me being rotten or anything, but sometimes you can have 1 million followers and still be a terrible comic. But you're
Dang.
going to get more money and more gigs than I will because I don't have 1 million followers.
Right.
You're right.
And that's okay. That's all right, because if they have fans that show up, that's all these clubs care about. Butts in seats and drinks sold. It's okay if you're funny. But if you're unfunny and you always sell out and you always sell drinks, you might get booked before the most famous comic in the world.
Dang. Never thought about it that way.
It's just
Wow.
business. It really
It
is just
is.
business. So having social media numbers when comics are like, I don't care about social media. I'm like, well, then you're probably not going to make that much money because it truly is your number. It's your number. It's how they decide how much they're going to pay you.
Dang. I never thought of it. Last question on my part. Dante, what upcoming projects that you got that you would like to share with us? I know, like, we try to get the exclusive on everybody at the very end. Like, what projects you got coming up? I heard you say something about, writing a book. Okay, got it's okay.
All right. I think I can hear you.
Yeah, all right. So what I said is, what upcoming projects that you got coming up that you like everybody to know about?
All right. Well, thank you. So I actually just released an album. It's called Dante's Divine Comedy. And here's the thing. There's a famous Italian poet named Dante Alighieri who wrote Dante's Divine Comedy. It's already a thing. The reason I decided to name my album that was I wanted as many confused college kids to accidentally download.
You're breaking up. You broke up. Hold up. Come back.
And I have lots of comedy gigs.
DA.com, and you can see where I'm playing. My old schedule's there. And on social media, I'm Dante the Comic, DANTE the Comic.
All right.
And don't forget, I'm teaching at Comedy Fantasy Camp on the end of February into the first weekend of March.
Oh, okay. Will?
Dante, it's been great, but
Same.
I'm going to ask you this last question.
Okay.
And then he leaves.
When you leave this planet, what do you want?
What do you want people to remember?
Right, about Dante.
Oh, man. I wish I had time to think about this one, because that's a toughie. You know what I would like? I would like if I inspire people to be good to each other. I mean that. I hope that my legacy lives on, that people were like, you know what? He did this. When he didn't have money, he gave that guy money. When when someone did this, he turned the other cheek. Or that guy did something really bad to him. But guess what? When something bad happened to that guy, Dante went out and bought his family a hotel for the week. Or I just want to inspire without doing it because you're looking to tell people you did it. Like, I'll never tell you anything charitable I do because I don't want you to know. You know what I mean?
That's
So
how
I
it's
hope
supposed
I
to be.
inspire people just to act good, like good people.
Right.
That's
Well,
great, Dante. Dante, I want to say this. Continue success and continue to impact lives and make a difference. That's what it's all about.
Same to
right.
you guys. It sounds like that's what you're both doing. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you, man. Thank you. This wraps up another episode of Purpose Driven Chance with my co-host Will and our special guest Dante.
Thanks,
You can
guys.
you can follow him on his Facebook page. Just trust me, you'll find it, Dante. And I don't want to mess up my man's last name. So just follow him on Facebook, Instagram, and I don't know if you have. I don't think he has TikTok, but just follow him
I
on
do.
those.
I do. Dante the comic too, because they took away my 1,000,000 followers. I did have 1,000,000 at one point. Oh well.
Oh, dang, that's a shame. All right, so y'all can follow him. Good day and good night.
All right. Bye bye.